to say thank you for joining us this evening and welcome to our January CSI chapter meeting. If anybody would like, if there's anybody in the house tonight, if anybody's in the room tonight is not a member, we would love to welcome you to our chapter. If you guys would like some information on it, please see either myself or any of our chapter or board members that are in attendance tonight.
I want to introduce our speaker tonight, Len Toenjes, president of AGC Missouri. Len has been doing this for a few years now, and I don't know if you recall, the first one he ever did for us was at the sheet metal complex. And that night it was raining, but it turned into sleet midway through his program, and we all had fun getting home. So that's not going to happen tonight. Len has said that he is welcoming questions during his presentation, and he said it's not going to all be bad news, so but we're hoping for that. So thanks to Len Toenjes, and hopefully he'll be back next year. So.
Usually at this point in the presentation, I make the announcement that I have happily been married for 50 years. I had my 50th wedding anniversary on the Friday after Thanksgiving. And I say that to help you all understand that I am perfectly comfortable with being interrupted at any time. So please stop anytime, ask whatever you need to ask me, and I'm very happy to be able to answer any questions you have along the way. And hopefully, there we go. So I figured, usually when somebody gets up to talk like this, how accurate was this guy last year? Well, first of all, what did I say? Where did we really end up? And then finally, what is the outlook? You don't know where you're going unless you know where you are. So this is a cut and paste copy from last year. Fed expected to increase the rate 3 times. Well, that wasn't totally accurate, but it was 3 plus. But they did increase the rates. If we have to raise rates one more time, we will. The consensus estimate was 7% for inflation, and high inflation is a severe threat to the achievement of maximum employment. That's where we were a year ago. That's what we said a year ago. So not too far off. Again, more stuff from last year, cut and paste. GDP growth between 4 and 4.5, that was off. Inflation core rate about 3%, and the real rate will be closer to 5. I think CPI was 5.1 last week. Interest rates will start to rise by 2022. Duh. Mortgage rates will rise. Unemployment numbers vary. Trade deficit will worsen. And the pandemic will be seen more of it as a seasonal threat like the flu. Not too far off last year. Again, another copy of the slides from last year. Inflation up, interest rates up, lots of projects, both public and private, workforce costs up, material costs and availability problems, and the political landscape changing. Maybe I should go to Vegas, not too far off. So, where did we really end up? Where did 2022 end up on people, inflation, and supply? And where these facts come from a variety of different sources. Bank industry, AGC of America, Wall Street Journal, a number of different sources. Some of these have attributes at the bottom, some don't. But let's look at the people factor. There's a change in employment. Look at residential construction change, look at non-farm, and look at non-residential construction. Look at the growth and the changes that have occurred there over that timeline from where we were. I'm sorry, I can't see the wherever that was. Look at the growth across the board. You've all seen this. and experienced it of where we're trying to get to. We're looking at residential construction up 7%, total non-farm flat, non-residential. It's down a little bit, but you can certainly see overall the growth from where we were long-term, almost back to where we were. Job openings and new hires. You can see what we've got there. New hires changed from October 2021, going down. Job openings going down. That's through October, not seasonally adjusted, but you can see overall that we are seeing these changes in the people. This next slide is local. We at AGC receive all the benefits purchases from all the trades, not all the trades, but the basic carpenters, laborers, cement masons, operating engineers, and iron workers. We receive all those work hours every month. We aggregate them, and this is sort of a real-time snapshot of what has happened and what is going on in the St. Louis marketplace. Anybody want to guess where 2008 is on that chart? You can see where 2008 was, and you can also see where we are today, which we are almost back to where we were back here. This 14 million work hour back around 09, and we're up to 98. That big valley in there, Mount Everest, is basically about the time that Busch Stadium and Weldon Spring, the Superfund project was going on. A lot of those things were happening. Quite frankly, I think this somewhat shows, you can certainly see the market coming up. You see the little pandemic dip there, but you can see the market coming up. I really, really, really doubt we will ever get to 16 million work hours again in this region for one reason. Technology. We were talking earlier, Dean, about what's going on with prefab, what's going on with managing projects more effectively. I doubt that we will ever get back to that level, but we have seen strong growth since 13, coming back up. If you put a line of best fit there, it certainly is trending in the right direction. Yes, sir.
Union versus non-union?
These are all union hours. 100% of these are union benefit hours.
So
And
is some of the decline because of non-union?
minimal. I'd say minimal, quite frankly. I think it's it's pretty small in terms of, this is an apples to apples sort of a comparison. Where are we right now in 2002? Weekly jobless claims, the normal range is between 200 to 300,000. We're at 211,000 right now. So the unemployment rate in Missouri in January 22 is 3.8. Now it's down to 2.7. Overall unemployment rate. 42 states across the United States. AGC collects all the data from the U.S. Department of Labor. 42 states have added construction jobs in the last 12 months. So I'm glad we don't own a hotel. I'm glad we don't own a restaurant. I'm really glad I don't own Southwest Airlines, but we are, in fact, in a strong position in terms of what we've seen in job growth. You can see where Missouri ranks out of those 42 states. Percentage-wise, and again, you have to figure North Dakota and South Dakota, it doesn't take very much to move the needle there. North Dakota and Rhode Island, doesn't take much to move the needle. But Utah strong, Nebraska, New Mexico, Nevada, there's Missouri in the top 10 in terms of where we are percentage-wise of growth in construction jobs statewide.
Say, Len,
Yes, sir.
Florida and Texas,
Strong growth, but percentage-wise, not that high. This is not raw, that was percentage-wise, not the actual raw numbers. Employment growth, November 21 to 22. You can kind of see overall 3.3%, non-residential 3.7, residential 3.4. So this sort of gives you a sector look of where the different sectors are in terms of the growth. That heavy civil really didn't grow that much. Residential, a little above average. Overall non-residential building was the strongest here. So that's what we saw market segment by market segment. AGC, you want people, big surprise, you're gonna have to pay them more. This is AGC firms that responded. Guess what, people? 72% increased pay more in 2022 than in 21. Introduced or increased bonuses, 33%. 7% got by with what they were paying in 21. Cost more. No surprise. There's the premium that you're paying for people. Average premium, 23, or actual premiums 23%. Excessive hourly earnings for production non-supervisory and employees in construction versus the private sector. I know you're going to be really happy to hear that we have carpenter and operating engineers contracts that expire May 1st. Don't share these slides. We're at the tip of that iceberg right now, but this is what people are paying compared to other industries to attract people into construction. Inflation's peaked. CPI is on the way back down. Like I said, CPI was up pretty high there for a while, almost. CPI was up almost 12%, back to 7.4. I think, quite frankly, producer price index is down. You see, actually, a trending downward, and I think in talking with folks over the last few days, it seems, last few weeks, I guess I should say, that prices are leveling off, whether it's steel or other commodities, but timelines are getting extended. Timelines are still a problem, but we're seeing this downward trend. Like I said, CPI is down to 5.1. I think the Fed probably feels like they've done the right thing in raising the interest rates. Again, non-residential construction inputs. This was November data. Diesel fuel. Anybody have any dirt work going on? Anybody that's trying to grade or develop or anything else, it's a difficult process there in terms of what you're looking at material-wise over the last 12 months. So I'll go back to those. Let's see, what were those predictions from last year? High inflation, severe threat. We saw it. Cost for new residential construction versus consumer prices. You can see that construction CPI was 7.7%, but the cost for inputs into construction, diesel, glass, steel, concrete, those costs are up 11%. Anybody having to dig a little deeper for the acorns, I think this pretty much is it. That gap is not what it was early on. It's narrowing, but you can see, you know, looking back, there was a huge disparity when inflation first hit between the what you could charge for construction and what you were paying for the materials. So that gap is narrowing, which is positive. So this is some positive news here. You're looking here at this chart. Non-residential input costs are the blue line. It's just going straight up. Residential costs, final costs are below, are sort of keeping up. There's a narrower gap there, but you can see that the commercial or non-residential costs are still going up at a sharper angle than what you can final cost versus the input cost. They're kind of dragging along, but they're not on top of each other. I'm glad I'm not in the residential market. You can see what's happening to home prices. Home prices are on that same black slope that we saw back in 2008. And existing home sales, you can see the trend there. Well, I know that this, I got this actually Wednesday, January 28th, 2023. Producer price indexes for construction inputs fell in December. They still outpaced inflation for the year. Producer price index for inputs to construction rose 7.2% in 2022, despite decreasing 1.8% from November to December. The year-over-year rise outpaced the 6.5% increase in the CPI. Diesel fuel came down 28% in December. Lumber and plywood came down 3.7%. Steel mill products came down 2.7%. Ready-mix concrete up 1.4%. Concrete up 13% for the year. Arctic paint up 26% year over year. Copper and brass up 1.3%. So average 7%, but you know, you got some with 30%. Some of the instances that we're seeing are things like, especially long-term I-270. That expand, you know, you got a 4 or 5 year major road expansion that was done design build and bid design build, and all of a sudden diesel fuel goes up 60%. Puts people in a strain, really does. There is, like I said, as I was just reading to you, a wide variation in these changes. It's all over the place. You know, diesel fuel 61%, paint 27%. Subcontractor price indexes, you can see at the bottom of the page there, you know, roofing guys up 20%, electrical up 15, plumbing up 15, concrete up 11. So when you look at what's going on in prices for subs that the generals are seeing, that's what you're seeing on average there. Again, looking at materials and the cost of inflation year over year, it varies, but it's all double digits. Cost squeeze on contractors can last 2 years or more. Period when change in costs exceeded the change in bid prices, or in red. It's only dipped down below there in the last couple of months. A lot of time in the red there in the last couple of years when materials and what was going on material-wise was way over what people were able to charge or what they were doing for construction. So, why? I've heard every reason under the book. Pandemic, the freeze in Houston, all the boats stuck out in the Pacific for all that time. People are getting too many benefits, so they're not coming back to work. I mean, there's 1,001 reasons that people are laying on top of this. Couple more. I mean, we've got flooding in Florida. We had hurricanes down there that wiped out the West Coast. We've got a Mississippi River that doesn't have enough water to float stuff down the river. Anybody try to get a commercial generator lately? What's the lead time on those? You're laughing.
Just on lights like.
Yeah. I mean, it's, we ended the year with obviously the prices going, tempering a little bit, but there really, I don't think, from what I'm hearing, has not been any change in lead times. I talked to a person this morning that works with Guarantee Electric. They're looking at, 50 to 70 months lead time on electrical panels. Talked to folks from McCarthy that are doing NGA. They got all their stuff ahead of time, but if somebody drops something, guess what? 50 to 70 weeks. So they have to be super cautious with what they do have in stock so that nothing happens to it, or it floods, or we get 10 inches of rain in 5 hours and stuff is underwater and it's ruined. So working ahead like that all sounds good, but so that's sort of where we ended up the year. Prices coming down, supply chain times still, I'm hearing there's still an issue, and I don't know that the workforce situation or a situation where you're having to pay more for the same thing maybe you got 2 or 3 years ago. So that's 2022. Anybody want to comment on the past? Anything to add to that picture of where we are?
Len, would you like to comment on the Fed pumping money into the economy, creating the inflation and that type of thing?
I would love to comment on that. I am the chairman. Another sort of fun project I have is I'm the chairman of the State Workforce Board. And not only the Fed pumping money in, but the benefits issue with people receiving extended benefits has created a worker shortage. Printing the money has really created a big problem where we saw personal savings hit an all-time record. Two things were happening. Number one, they could save most of it because there was no place to go spend it. And number two, we totally took the reins off of benefits. Missouri, when Governor Parson took office, whatever it was, 2 or 3 years ago, Missouri, their population is 6 million people. We had 1.2 million people at that point who were receiving Medicaid benefits from the state. He said he wanted to correct that, clean it up. It got down to 900,000 pre-pandemic. Pandemic was declared an emergency. The Fed, both Donald Trump and President Biden said, that's it, you can't deny anybody Medicaid benefits. Today, we have 1.5 million people in Missouri receiving Medicaid benefits, plus all the free money they got. Plus, we got to pay more for the people who do work. Why am I going to leave my Medicaid benefits when I still got money in the bank? I'm still getting insurance. What the hell? How crazy you go to work? You know, so it's going to take years to work through that. It's going to take years. It's a big hole. However, that being said, globally, the U.S. is outperforming other countries. We're outperforming the EU. If you look at global inflation in 2022, it was 9.4%. And globally, you're looking at another 6.5%. They're looking at interest rates globally staying high through the end of 2025. Supply chain, I mentioned the floods, I mentioned the other stuff. We also got to think about China with all their COVID restrictions, trying to pursue this zero COVID policy. Why can't you get chips? You know, I was talking to this guy today, you know, there's chips in the GFCI receptacles. Can't get the chips for those. Why you gotta wait so long for a GFCI receptacle? The chips come from China. You know, that zero policy. The shipping bottlenecks obviously are proving, I think a lot of folks are getting away from Long Beach and moving more to Houston and Atlanta. They're starting to use Panamax now. So that is getting a little better, but who knows how long the war in Ukraine is going to go on. I was talking to one of our guys, and I trying to remember the specific product it was, but the primary supplier was Ukraine, and they were having trouble there. Yes, sir.
Okay, question from online. Bruce Rogers wants to know, with home costs dropping again at the end of the year, when should we expect to see a corresponding increase in sales?
It won't be in 23. I don't think it'll be in 23. I think people are going to run out of this extra savings. I think development costs aren't going to go down any. I would have to say you're looking 24. Spring of 24 would be my guess. But I think it's going to take a while for this to all. The Fed is not going to cut interest rates during 2023. That isn't going to happen. So if anything, they'll freeze them where they are, and that's a big driver. So people are spending down their money, and the interest rates aren't going to be dropping anytime soon. So I don't think, I was talking earlier, we're starting to see small contractors migrate from residential into commercial. We just had a person apply for membership that had two small sort of residential service companies, merged them, and are moving into the commercial market. So I think some folks are starting to make some business decisions to move away from that because I think they see a longer term downturn there. I hope that answered the question. So what are sort of these, what could 2023 bring? You could see China has the zero COVID policy, could continue. We could have cyber war. Anybody here get phishing attacks or any of that sort of crap? You could have China and Taiwan go to war. Ukraine is still a problem. You got Europe trying to do everything off of windmills. They're lucky it's warm in Germany right now. And we got, other things going on there in the US that I can't read off of my slides. But, you've got monetary tightening. Maybe you'll get, maybe they'll decide that they want to extend those Medicaid benefits a little longer and not let the pandemic go away. Maybe we need to extend the pandemic further and further so we can keep people getting their Medicaid. I mean, those are all things that, it's an interconnected world. Anybody thinks it isn't over the last 2 years with what's gone on supply chains, I've got an internet I want to sell you. These are the forecasts that we're looking at. Inflation, these are global. Now this is from PNC Bank and their global rate look at, but you're looking at an interconnected world here. You're looking at EU past its peak, but prices will stay high all through 2023. You're looking at interest rates climbing in 2023 globally. Isn't getting any better there. Mild recession in the US. You've heard that a few times in the press lately. A mild recession. Slowdown in consumer spending for electronics and services. Less so for top-end market segments. So some slowdown there, and there are some difficult spots and some bright spots. So it's spotty, but that's sort of where we are. Where we are on interest rates, again, you can see US, UK, EU, and Japan. That's what we're looking at interest rate wise. So overall, this is sort of a long term out to 2025. Don't see anything changing in 23 or 24. Pretty flat. So it's going to be like this for a while. That's why the home building, I think, is going to be a while. You're not going to see anything of any significance change there. Again, I said CPI is going down. We're seeing this, that the CPI is headed down. Prices are softening a little bit. And where is that? You can see a recession is when you get those little dips, and technically that's sort of, we were close there, but we're getting close to it. Energy going way down. You can see the yellow at the bottom. Look what's happened with it. Gas was went from $4 to $3 now. Core inflation is pretty static. Food's pretty static, but energy is really driving that drop in what we're seeing in CPI. So you're probably gonna see this kind of level off. The core inflation might come down a little bit, but that's kind of where we're headed. So US economy, PPI is headed down. You're looking at, I would say you're probably gonna see it level off about where it is. I don't think fuel's gonna go down much further. If anything, it might bump up a little bit, but you're probably looking at that PPI staying there. Interest rates, nothing in 23. You're looking at it, or maybe up a little bit. And what the economists are calling a recession, yes, we're headed into it. Overall economy. To answer your question in the back, all we want for the Fed to do is just not do anything else. All I want for Christmas is a Fed pause in 2023. That's what we're after. Banks, the stock market, the bond markets. You can see that interest rate expectations are higher for longer. So you're looking at 23, 24, 25, 26 across. So you're really not looking at the, these are from the Open Market Committee, Fed Open Market Committee. And how those people who are on that Fed Open Market Committee individually look at where interest rates are headed. Projection for year end, you're looking at 26 before you're back down at 2.5%. These are people a lot smarter than me. Talk about construction. That's all general economy stuff. Where are we looking at construction? We peaked in 2022 in June. Right now, since June, we're down about 1.2. Residential's down, commercial's down, savings rates dropped, as we talked about. People aren't getting those free checks that much as they were before. And we're seeing job growth overall slow down. You know, you're seeing it more in, obviously in entertainment, retail, places like that. Not so much in construction. You saw those numbers back at the beginning about where Missouri ranks in terms of job construction growth, that construction jobs are still growing strong. I'm trying to remember if I have one member who is not looking for people right now. I don't care if they're craft workers, project managers, superintendents. Everybody is looking for bodies. But 2023 performance projections, adjusted for inflation, single family, multifamily, commercial, institutional. Guess what? Manufacturing, onshoring. Big movement there. People had enough crap with the pandemic. People who are doing manufacturing, plant work. Manufacturing is seeing the largest growth since 1967, when Dodge started tracking these metrics. Battery plants. I think there was an article in the journal over the weekend about 3D printing. 3D printing has sort of come into its own in the last, at first it was a lot of gee whiz stuff, but now the technology has gotten to the point where the costs are down enough and it's reliable enough that that's really being used to onshore some more manufacturing stuff, that people are starting to see some of the benefits and usefulness of 3D printing, which I think is playing into some of this manufacturing growth. Public work is going to go crazy. The IIJA money is all out there. That's all mostly been let. Look at the amount of municipal bonds that were passed in the election last year. Nationwide, $57 billion in muni bonds. Sewers, roads, public buildings, all the things that can be funded by muni bonds. They're a decent investment, but I think this is something that we've been working on at AGC, and I'll get off of this for a little bit. I did a webinar yesterday for the Missouri Municipal League. We have 2 documents that are like coloring books, basically, about 8 pages each. One is construction terms. The other one has to do with project delivery systems and how to choose a construction team. Because you got a lot of people who are elected or appointed to a fire district or a school board or board of aldermen, that all of a sudden they got all kinds of money from IIJA and from all these bonds that they issued when interest rates were low. And now they want to build something. And the music man shows up and is going to get him some new band uniforms. So I've had more than one contractor come to me and say, okay, all of a sudden I sell these bonds and I promised the public I'm going to build 5 new gymnasiums with all these bonds that I sold. I got them approved, I got all the bond issuance, I got them all sold, I got the public to vote for it. Now I go get the pricing. Prices have gone bad crap. Diesel fuel's up 60%, concrete's up 23%. Guess what? I can only build 4 gyms. Whose fault is that when I go back to the voters? So is it the architect's fault? Is it the engineer's fault? Is it the contractor's fault? So that is an issue, I think, related to those muni bonds that someone trying to work on, is educate some of those folks as those public dollars get rolled out. We've seen a terrible trend at MoDOT that they are putting projects out to bid based on their engineers' estimates. The costs are coming out 20% over what their engineers' estimates were, and then they don't award the project. All the numbers are public then. That's not a good situation. Everybody knows where the target is. So that is an issue. I think that whole muni bond public spending issue is something that will play through 2023. Dodge Momentum Index, November, 25% higher. And that is a monthly measure of the initial reports for non-residential building in planning that are going to lead to projects in the upcoming year. Residential trend this way, non-residential this way. AGC survey of major concerns. Economic slowdown, recession, 75% are concerned about that. Material costs, 73%. The insufficient supply of workers, 70%, and interest rates, 67%. So these are all pretty high that people are concerned about these for 2023. Certainly a recession is going to tap into some things, and you're going to see the material prices sort of stabilized, but you notice a lot of these say increase year over year. Lumber stabilizing, glass up, aluminum up, insulation up, plastic up. Just wait till they decide that PVC is a hazardous material. Just wait for that to happen. Concrete up, gypsum up, diesel fuel still, look at that, 111%. So that's sort of what we're looking at material-wise. I know that a lot of you guys are AIA members and probably look at the AIA, the Architectural Building Index. There's where the ABI is right now, most recent ABI. So you see that coming down. I don't know, this is a little bit, to me, a little bit at odds with that Dodge Momentum Index. But I think that Dodge Momentum Index is more based on this slide, that contractors have a strong backlog, that contractors all do have a lot of projects in the pipeline. We budget at AGC, we budget based on volume of work. So I get my contractors together and we sit around the boardroom and say, okay, how should I budget? Down 10, down 5, flat, up 5, up 10. This year it was flat because they can't imagine that they could push the people who they have any further than they can right now. Backlog is strong. But the bottleneck is the workforce. That, you know, we have a young lady who works in our office. Her husband is a pipe fitter, and finally a couple months ago, he just turned in his truck and his cell phone and said, look, that's it. I'm not going to be a project manager anymore. I'm getting 100 calls a day. Just give me my tools back. It's crazy, the stress that some of these people are going under to try to burn both ends of the candle there. And backlogs are coming down a little bit. Backlogs are still super strong, you can see. And I think any reputable contractor is sort of in that same situation. And where are we in terms of projects, the type of projects? You're going to see public works are all strong. Bridge, highway, transportation, water, sewer, federal, all at the top. All that federal money, all that IIJA money, all those bonds that were passed. What's at the bottom? Retail, private office, lodging, multifamily. Manufacturing up a little bit, higher ed sort of in the middle. But you can see what's driving where we're headed on the value of projects. If any of you were really bored and watched the governor's State of the State today, we have been working on, I'll talk about this a little bit later, what's going on with MoDOT, with all the public money that's coming there. St. Louis Regional Freightway, we're going to see more and more work going up and down the river. There's a big push as Panamax has taken off. There's a new technology to move containers on barges. You know, until now, I think if you're going to move containers on barges, you were basically dropping them in a grain barge, but there is some new technology that is being built right now to have a system for taking those containers off of the sea-bound ships and put them onto craft that are specifically designed to transfer those containers up the river. There's some port work going on around St. Genevieve, I think just south of Missouri, of St. Louis here a little bit. There's a big movement to improve the ports there, to create a facility to allow for those easy transfer of those containers before they have to go through the lock and dam. Good spot for us. Project Clear MSD, they're still under the consent decree. We're starting a new rate case this Friday where we're going to be looking at potential increase in MSD rates to do stormwater work. Anybody have their basement flood in July when all the stormwater hit? Right now, the consent decree that MSD is under basically applies to all the wastewater and the combined sewers, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the stormwater side also. So we're gonna, I think, still see consent decree play out, plus potentially some work there on that side of things. So I think transportation, public-wise, those are the areas where I think we are going to see some strong stuff here locally. And let's talk about people. Expectations regarding hiring. Expect headcount to rise 70%. Expect it to continue to become easier to hire 15%. Harder 60%. We are doing just about every damn thing I can think of to try to find people. We're doing coloring books for grade schools. We got volunteers going to libraries to read construction books during reading hour. We had career fairs in Sykeston, in Springfield, in Jefferson City, at Florissant Valley Community College, at the St. Charles Convention Center. We had 8,500 high school kids who we talked to last year. We're working with veterans organizations to try to reposition vets as they come back out of the military service. You know, I didn't really think about it. You end up with a situation where a recruiter shows up in high school, kids a junior, senior in high school. Hey, you don't have the family support to go to college. You don't have the wherewithal to go to college. How about, join Uncle Sam, we'll take care of you. 3 hots and a cot, we'll take care of you. You'll be great. You come out the other end, you'll learn a skill. Well, that's great. They go out and do that. 4 years later, guess what they come back to? Same crap they left when they were juniors in high school. Families still screwed up. They still don't have any visible means of support. They go trimming trees, delivering pizzas. We run these programs. The families can't believe how happy they are to have these young men and women getting on their feet out of veterans groups. We are working with substance abuse. There's a halfway house right over on Arsenal in Macklin. You would never know it to drive by it, but there's like 35 guys living in there that they're trying to get cleaned up. We're going over there. We've got a 6-week construction school. Try to help them get back on their feet, not slip back into substance abuse, and get them job placements. Missouri Department of Corrections just hired 10 job placement people inside the prisons. They have welding programs, they have electrical programs, they have carpentry programs, they have heavy equipment operator programs. So 10 prisons now have full-time job placement people. They release, on average, 100 inmates a month. So we're trying to work with those job placement people and bring those people in. Getting high school kids ain't gonna do it. Not when we're looking at what we're looking at. So those are some of the things. And of course, would I love to have a fresh, new, young, bright high school kid that comes out to build my future? Certainly. I'm gonna have to think about, what do I do about a returning veteran? What do I do about somebody with what do they call it, involvement with the justice system? What do I do about somebody who's trying to get off drugs? Maybe I need to think about things like that. So that's 2023. I think we're going to have to be a little more open to that. I think we are going to see shortage of the workforce. That's going to continue to dampen activity. You just don't 3D print people. You know, we're working smarter. We're working more with drones and prefabrication and all the other things that are keeping those work hours down. But I think we are really looking at constrained activity. Home building, those guys still have a strong backlog right now. They'll probably get them through 4th of July. But I think after 4th of July, I hate to say it, but that may solve some of our workforce problem on the commercial side and on the building side. That I think just what we're seeing with some contractors, I think we may see some craft workers start to make that move, so that may help us a little bit. Material inflation, it's already starting to level off. Availability is going to improve, and I'll save this slide. If you do have me back next year, Warren, I'll save this slide, okay? Quote me on this. Recreational marijuana, who in the hell knows? We're looking at all this public work where it's federal dollars. Guess what? You can't use marijuana and work where it's federal dollars. So if you're working for NGA, if you're working at the airport, if you're working on a MODOC project, if you're working on an MSD project, if you're working on a Corps of Engineer project, if you're working anywhere where all those federal dollars are, you got a drug-free workplace. You know, whether you think it's right or wrong, it's a law. So I think that will constrain workforce to some extent. I have on here the very last thing, this, and this is sort of a wild card, this St. Louis as a construction technology hub is something that I think is going to move forward. If you look at this little map here, you can see this area south of 64, west of the river, east of 55, down to about Soulard, or south of there. There was a piece on Channel 4 a couple months ago, and I talked to these guys. It's some young man who graduated from Washington University and made a bunch of money and went to New York City and became a developer. And his big dream now is, as Silicon Valley was to the IT industry, that's what this area here will be to the construction technology industry. They have already procured a bunch of this property. There's a group of this development group out of New York.
What was their name?
It's, I honestly don't remember their
I can't
name.
remember their name.
Pardon me?
It's GDG, Good Development.
Good development group. Okay, because they probably talked to you about what you guys are doing. They've got big plans for that area. They have a lot of the property already. They're looking at being able to move stuff up and down the river, being able to throw stuff on the rail lines, being able to throw stuff on the highways. That area is basically ripe for the taking right now. I think they've already worked with the city to procure a bunch of that property already. I understand they already have gobbled up a lot of it. This is a real growth opportunity for our industry if St. Louis would be recognized. You know, we've got groups like Siler, we've got you guys, we've got Murphy Company, just, you know, name a few that are doing a lot of prefab stuff, a lot of great technology that's already in the region, that actually they're trying to work with me to work with AGC of America to look at what they can do to attract other businesses, construction, technology, forward-thinking folks from across the country into that area. Big opportunity on the building side. We may be seeing here in the St. Louis region. For those of you that listen to the governor's State of the State address, I know you are all hanging on every word this afternoon. You know, the state has this, all this extra money that they've collected in overrun of tax revenues. The governor today announced $863 million of that he would like to put towards a third lane each way on Highway 70. That sounds like a lot, 863. That's enough to do 50 miles of I-70 to 3-lane of both ways. The legislature is not necessarily in alignment with that. The legislature thinks that's chump change, that if we're going to fix it, we should fix it all. 860 million is sort of like a down payment. In essence, it's about a $3 billion project to add that to 6-lane and all the way from here to Kansas City. So I think that's something to watch in this legislative session, because that will have a big impact of that whole freight thing that we've been talking about. There's a big move in the legislature there. It's not just St. Louis and Kansas City. Needless to say, the truckers would love to see it. Agricultural community would love to see it. Missouri Municipal League would love to see it. So we'll see where that goes. But those are my 2023 predictions. We're still going to have to dig for people. Prices are going to stabilize. You're going to see some increase in the supply chain. We got the challenges of marijuana, but I think we've got these opportunities in that hub and in this I-70 project. I do a podcast a couple times a month. It's free. Love to have you listen to it. We talked, the most recent one talked about legislative issues, but we are talking about workforce and all the other initiatives that we're trying to take care of as a trade association. So that's, if you don't want to listen to me just once a year, you have this opportunity, free, to listen to this, and I keep them short, 15 to 20 minutes, so you can listen to it while you're stuck in traffic. So, questions? Yes, sir.
One came in online. Does AGC have a position on Missouri legislature push to reduce income tax?
Yes. I don't know that this is 100% official. However, I would say that if it came to a vote, we would not support it. They tried it in Kansas, and it turned out to be a disaster. Kansas, the governor in Kansas did a major decrease in the income tax, and it turned out to be a nightmare for the DOT, for the municipalities, for all the people who relied on that. It was the trickle-down theory that will cut the income tax and we'll get all these jobs that'll move into Kansas and all the boats will rise. Well, they cut the income tax and part 2 never happened. So it sounds good, but I think frankly, us in the construction industry, we're better off taking this short term. This, what we've seen right now in this run up in tax revenues, it's a one-time shot. It's really due to all this free money. You talked about the free money the government printed. That's that is not all Missouri money that we're talking about. That's state and federal that we've had this big overrun in tax revenues. Even when we met with the governor last week, he emphatically said this is a once in a lifetime deal. If we cut income taxes, that's forever. Nobody's going to raise them back. Take what you have, invest it. You know, if you go out, drive out to St. Charles, the first section of I-70, there's a sign right around 5th Street, right around the convention center there. That was the first piece of interstate built in the United States, 1956. You know, a lot of the interstate is old enough to be on Social Security. And, you know, last Thursday when I drove down to Jefferson City, and I'm down there somewhat frequently, you know, I hit westbound, I hit the snow that was coming in on Warrensburg. Jeff City schools were closed last Thursday morning. I should have pulled over. I mean, it was terrible heading out 70. It's dangerous. It's tough. So we need to take what we have and invest it properly. If we take a short term, if we, let's face it, we got a Republican governor, a Republican lieutenant governor, a Republican House, a Republican Senate. You think if they cut income taxes, it's ever gonna go back? No matter how bad it gets, it ain't going back. Take what we have, use it wisely, and ride this out. It's gonna level off again.
Anyone else?
Question up here.
Len, when you were talking about the labor force, no mention of the immigrant population?
My oversight. We do need to, I talked to somebody who is in the manufacturing world, manufacture generators, and they just got a big contract. There was a lady who was on our board of directors last year, Nalini Mahanavan. And Nalini is ML Law, and she primarily, it's on the podcast. Within the last couple of months, I've had her on the podcast, but talked about the steps to go through to bring the, you know, a lot of the Ukrainian people, Ukrainian refugees, Serbian refugees. You know, we haven't seen too much Hispanic, quite frankly, but we have seen a lot more Eastern European. Nalini's doing what she can do to, I think there's a fear of losing those people, that somehow they're not gonna have their immigration status straightened out and that sort of thing. But I think going to, Nalini has some ideas about things that people can do, and I would say listen to that podcast. She's got some good reflections on that. But you are correct, that's my oversight.
Is there anybody else?
I'm getting a hook here. So I'm gonna just get one more slide. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to do this. And that's all I have to say about that.
Guys, let's thank Len again for this. This was amazing. Thank you again, Len.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank everybody at home that tuned in online for us. Let's give a big hand to our food sponsor, another one of our favorite members, Mr. Hank Minke and the Sherwin-Williams Company. They sponsored this lovely dinner for us, so I want to thank them, and I hope to see all you guys for our next meeting in February. Thank you.